Tonight on the Worldview Report, protests turned violent in Los Angeles in scenes reminiscent of the 2020 so-called Summer of Love. But instead of Black Lives Matter, this time the aggrieved party is illegal invaders. Pope Leo XIV criticizes the surge of nationalist political movements in the world as he prayed Sunday for reconciliation and dialogue, a message that echoes the globalist agenda of his predecessor. Is Pope Leo becoming a mirror image of Pope Francis? Two separate companies, one based in Japan and the other in China. They paused their electric vehicle battery projects in the United States. We'll explain why. And a major new study confirms that autism is not a matter of genetic condition, but is caused by toxic chemicals being injected into children. All these stories and more as the Worldview Report begins right now.
This is Worldview Report with host Brandon House. Whether it is news from the nation's capital or your state capital, from the classroom to the boardroom, from national security to national and local news that impacts you and your family, Worldview Report is your trusted source for vital and uncensored news. And now, here is Brandon House.
Good evening and welcome to the Worldview Report. We start off tonight with riots gathering steam in Los Angeles, and with it, total chaos in the streets. Watch this. Store owners were defenseless against looters. Watch this.
Oh, damn. So everybody's hopping out to free beer. Poor guy. He's like, I don't know what to do.
They're letting them.
Well, what can you do?
There's workers in the scrubber.
What's he gonna do? Say no?
California Governor Gavin Newsom criticized President Trump's decision to deploy 2,000 National Guard troops to Los Angeles, calling the action, quote, purposefully inflammatory, end quote, and warning that it would lead to escalation. President Trump responded by threatening to send in the Marines, calling the rioters insurrectionists. The White House said the deployment of the Guard followed 2 days of protest and assaults on U.S. immigration and customs enforcement personnel during immigration operations in Southern California. President Trump argued that California officials, well, they had failed to control the unrest and that the federal government would intervene to restore order. What began as a supposedly spontaneous protest against ICE deportation operations in LA, well, it has now been exposed as something far more concerning. It appears to be a well-funded, coordinated riot with ties to radical Marxist organizations, government-backed non-government organizations, and even a billionaire known for pushing Chinese communist propaganda. According to a bombshell report by the investigative X account at Data Republican, several nonprofit organizations and shadowy political fronts, well, they reportedly played roles in igniting the chaos that saw federal officers attacked, flags burned, cars torched, and city streets blocked. But here's the most alarming thing of all. Tens of millions of dollars in taxpayer money may have indirectly fueled the unrest. The Gateway Pundit reports that at the center of the funding web is the California for Humane Immigration Rights, or CHIRLA. Documents reveal that the group saw a shocking jump from $12 million to $34 million in government grants in just 1 year. While most of that is believed to have come from the state of California, the group has also reportedly received approximately $450,000 in federal funding under the Biden regime. According to the report from Data Republican, photos from the scene of the riots show Chirla-linked materials and professionally printed signs that reportedly trace back to the Party for Socialism and Liberation, or PSL. That is reportedly a communist front group operating in the U.S. with no transparency and no registered nonprofit status, so we're told. Gateway Pundit notes that behind the curtain of this shadowy organization is Neville Stingham, a reported socialist billionaire and known for supposedly being a financier of Chinese propaganda efforts abroad. Stingham has funneled more than $20 million to radical groups, according to reports, including those involved in recent campus takeovers at Columbia University. According to Data Republican, Stingham is linked to PSL, the Answer Coalition, and the People's Forum, all of which have played a part in the LA riots, according to reports. We've already discussed how President Trump is being accused of fanning the flames of the riots. But what about the other side? The Democrats in charge of California, that is. As violent anti-ICE and Antifa mobs descended on immigration enforcement agents and police in LA on Friday night, Mayor Karen Bass said the city will not stand for what she called terror tactics from ICE. Police, they used flashbang grenades to disperse crowds of anti-ICE agitators who were, well, trying to interfere with the arrests of illegal invaders. In total, ICE reportedly took 44 people into custody during the LA raids on that first night. Watch this.
fascist regime known as the Third Reich. Your leader is
Americans from Argentina. That's America. Go back to the other side of the ocean. Go back to the other side of the ocean. back to your celebration. Go back to your celebration.
Mayor Bass's response was to blame the federal agents as she took a defiant stand against basic enforcement of immigration law. After the violence broke out, L.A. Mayor Karen Bass said in a statement, quote, "This morning we received reports of federal immigration enforcement actions in multiple locations in Los Angeles. As mayor of a proud city of immigrants who contribute to our city in so many ways, I am deeply angered by what has taken place. These tactics sow terror in our communities and disrupt basic principles of safety in our city. My office is in close coordination with immigrant rights community organizations. We will not stand for this," end quote. In a deja vu moment, harkening back to the summer of 2020, CNN referred to the LA riots as peaceful protest. The Post-Millennial's senior editor, Andy Ngo, reported that some of the violent actions were carried out and planned by the far-left extremist group known as Antifa, which was also heavily involved in the riots 5 years ago. Police shot smoke bombs and tear gas, as well as other non-lethal substances, into crowds of violent agitators, all in an effort to disperse the mobs. In one instance, the agitators chased after an ICE vehicle, with one person trying to stop the moving car. Agitators vandalized and destroyed property, with many masked up as they carried out their destructive, apparently orders. In a press release, Homeland Security said of Bass's comments, in light of the anti-ICE mobs, quote, "The violent targeting of law enforcement in Los Angeles by lawless protesters is despicable. These men and women work every day, putting their lives on the line to protect and defend the lives of American citizens. Mayor Bass, ICE is not responsible for sowing a sense of terror. The protesters you enabled are," end quote. On Sunday, President Trump said in a post to his Truth Social account that he had ordered Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem and Attorney General Pam Bondi and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth to, quote, "liberate Los Angeles," end quote, and end the riots. He said the last straw for him was that, quote, "violent insurrectionist mobs are swarming and attacking our federal agents to try and stop our deportation operations. But these lawless riots only strengthen our resolve," end quote. He directed Noem, Hegseth, and Bondi, along with other relevant departments and agencies, to, quote, "take all such action necessary and put an end to these migrant riots. Order will be restored. The illegals will be expelled, and Los Angeles will be set free. Thank you for your attention to these matters," end quote. Breitbart News reports that Pope Leo XIV used his Sunday sermon to criticize the worldwide surge of nationalist political movements, a message that appeared to channel the globalist agenda of his predecessor, Pope Francis. The Pope, he celebrated Sunday Mass in St. Peter's Square in front of tens of thousands of faithful. And he asked the Holy Spirit to, quote, "break down barriers and tear down the walls of indifference and hatred," end quote. And then he added, quote, "where there is love, there is no room for prejudice, for security zones separating us from our neighbors, for the exclusionary mindset that tragically we now see emerging also in political nationalisms," end quote. He did not name any specific country or politician. But if you're against nationalism, which is nation states acting in accordance with their own national interest, that means you're for globalism. The bottom line is that we have another globalist pope, same as the last pope, the Marxist Jesuit Pope Francis. Pope Leo, he even said he drew inspiration from the words of his predecessor and former boss, the late Pope Francis, who, by the way, observed 1 year ago on the Feast of Pentecost that in our world, quote, "we are all connected, yet find ourselves disconnected from one another, anesthetized by indifference and overwhelmed by solitude," end quote. A Japanese company has halted construction on a $1.6 billion electric vehicle battery factory in South Carolina. Republican Governor Henry McMaster said on Friday that the company is grappling with the GOP-led Congress potentially eliminating federal tax incentives for purchasing electric vehicles, as well as the tariffs imposed by the Trump administration. The Automotive Energy Supply Corp said in a statement, quote, "Due to policy and market uncertainty, we are pausing construction at our South Carolina facility at this time," end quote. Apparently, this is an admission that without government mandates and subsidies, electric vehicles cannot compete. The lie, folks, has now been clearly exposed. Well, meanwhile, Zero Hedge reports that a second EV battery manufacturer in South Carolina is also reevaluating its plans. Chinese-owned AESC has halted construction of its $1.6 billion battery plant in America's emerging battery belt, citing the same reasons: economic uncertainty tied to President Trump's tariffs and the potential early termination of, well, federal clean energy subsidies. Construction of AESC's electric vehicle battery plant in Florence, South Carolina, it began in 2023. That was after securing a deal with BMW to make battery cells. On Thursday, the company sent a letter notifying employees of the construction stoppage. The Wall Street Journal reported this fact. Along with tariffs and the possible end of subsidies, the letter mentioned, quote, broader industry pressures as automakers slow or cancel EV rollouts, end quote. AESC's chief executive for U.S. and Europe, well, he wrote in the memo that, quote, our intent is to finish construction of the facility once stability and predictability have returned to the market, end quote. Current and former employees told the Wall Street Journal that construction of the building has been completed, but all work on installing equipment and battery cell assembly lines has indeed been halted. We'll be right back after this break. Hello, I'm Brandon House. I want to thank you for all your support at WVWFoundation.com that helps make possible pushing out 24/7 content for free. Without your support, we'd have to put it all behind a paywall. But thanks to you and your support through our foundation, we're able to push it out for free as a broadcast service and broadcast ministry of WVW Foundation. Please consider going there and setting up an automatic monthly contribution, or go there and make an occasional contribution. If you prefer to support us through the mail, you'll find our mailing address there at wvwfoundation.com. You can also call and make your contribution over the phone by calling 901-825-0652. That's 901-825-0652. Again, all these details are available at wvwfoundation.com. Thank you for your support as we try to help people around the world understand the times through the lens of a Christian worldview. Welcome back from the break. Thank you for being with us and for remembering that we are brought to you by you. We are a listener-supported network. One way you can support us is by going to our foundation page, worldviewfoundation.com, and making a contribution of any size. Our foundation exists for many reasons, but primarily to help people understand the times through the lens of a Christian worldview, to know how we should respond, how we should live. Our foundation also sponsors our Sunday night church service. Last night, lesson 40. As I'm teaching through the book of Revelation, we started with Revelation chapter 17, made it through just a few verses. And that lesson, if you didn't catch it Sunday night at 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern, well, it's now online for you to watch on demand and share with family and friends at worldviewtube.com. So again, our foundation helps make possible our Sunday night church service. It is our church. And so if you appreciate what we're doing, we need your support through that foundation. Worldviewfoundation.com. You'll also find our mailing address there if you prefer to support us through the mail. Worldviewfoundation.com. Thank you for your support so we can continue not only this broadcast, but pushing out all kinds of other programs to you free of charge. And not just the programs, look at all the free platforms we push it out to, like Roku. We have our own Roku channel. We had to pay to build that. We have our own iPhone app. We had to pay for that to be built. We have our own Android app. We had to pay for that to be built. We have a lot of different platforms we had to custom build, pay for that, just to give you more opportunities to watch our programming, and as well as other people. Because after all, it's a battle for the mind, for hearts and minds, isn't it? And we want people to hear the truth and be convicted of it. Folks, one way we're going to save this country, if we are indeed going to do so, is obviously through the gospel, right? But it's through people also understanding then as Christians how to think and live, to be disciples, right? So this is what we're committed to. WorldviewFoundation.com, WorldviewFoundation.com. Thank you for making a contribution there now, or by finding our mailing address and making a contribution through the mail. WorldviewFoundation.com. Breitbart News reports that Israel on Sunday ordered the military to stop a humanitarian ship carrying activists, including Swedish climate huckster, I think that's what she is, Greta Thunberg. Well, they were about to break a blockade of the war-ravaged Gaza Strip. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz said in a statement, quote, "I have instructed the military to prevent the Madeleine flotilla from reaching Gaza," end quote, calling Thunberg a, quote, anti-Semite, end quote, and the group of activists, quote, Hamas propaganda mouthpieces, end quote. Then he added, quote, "Turn back because you will not reach Gaza," end quote. The flotilla, it refused to turn back, and it was seized. Those on board were deported back to their home countries. The Madeleine, operated by the Freedom Flotilla Coalition, it left Italy on June 1st with the aim of delivering aid and challenging the Israeli blockade, which has been in place for years, even before the Israel-Hamas war, since October of 2023. Israeli authorities said the Madeleine had a minuscule amount of aid on board and was mostly a propaganda operation. A recent appellate court decision upheld President Donald Trump's authority to exclude the Associated Press from accessing the Oval Office. The decision reverses a lower court's decision that had granted equal access to the AP as other media organizations. That's according to the Washington Times. The judgment simultaneously restricts the White House from limiting AP's access to other areas like the East Room. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia issued a 2-1 verdict on the ruling. The court confirmed that Trump can assert presidential discretion concerning Oval Office access. Historically, the Oval Office has been a bastion of monumental decisions and crucial meetings. Sometimes, well, the media is present at the president's invitation. The court's majority emphasized that this significant space is distinct from other public forums. The judges noted that the president has control over access to the Oval Office. Judge Naomi Rayo articulated that although news gathering enjoys some First Amendment protection, it does not qualify as a communicative act. This case arose from the White House excluding AP for not using President Trump's renamed Gulf of America terminology. Slay News reports that a major new study has confirmed that autism is caused by toxic chemicals being injected into children, and it is not a genetic condition, as long claimed. For decades, Americans were told a very simple story. Autism is in your genes. It's just a roll of the biological dice, if you will. But now even scientists within the genetic research establishment are quietly admitting what many skeptical parents have long suspected. This theory of theirs about being in your genes, well, it doesn't hold up. According to Dr. Toby Rogers, whose suppressed doctoral thesis chapter was recently released, the $8 billion per year U.S. genetic research complex, well, they have failed to produce a clear result linking genes to autism or any other major illness. Rogers writes, quote, "Even if sophisticated genetic and genomic research is able to find ways to reduce symptoms and severity, it is still going to be orders of magnitude more cost-effective, not to mention more ethical, to prevent autism in the first place by keeping toxic chemicals out of children's bodies," end quote. despite millions of dollars funneling into, well, these fields through the National Institutes of Health. Genetic research into autism, it remains scientifically weak and dangerously misleading. In fact, studies have shown that over 96% of reported genetic disease associations fail replication, which is the basic standard for proving anything in science. And yet, the funding continues, propped up by massive biotech lobbying, university industry collusion, and an entrenched narrative that conveniently, of course, diverts attention away from the corporate pollution, vaccine safety concerns, and environmental toxins. All, of course, politically inconvenient topics for powerful institutions. Since the 1990s, the Human Genome Project and biotech firms, they have promised miracles. They've promised cures for everything from autism to Alzheimer's. They say it's all encoded in our DNA. But by 2009, even insiders admitted that they were almost back to square one. Renowned geneticist Craig Venter had already warned in 2001, quote, "The human species diversity is not hardwired in our genetic code. Environments play a critical role," end quote. As data mounted, researchers like David Goldstein, Nicholas Wade, and Richard Lewontin, they reached similar conclusions. Genomics failed to deliver. To cover for these failures, geneticists, they apparently created the so-called dark matter theory. It's the idea that disease-related genes exist. We just haven't found them yet. Critics say this is little more than an excuse to keep the grant money flowing. The emerging science points in a different direction. Environmental triggers, not genes, those are likely behind the autism surge. Well, now it is time for our nightly Worldview Report commentary. After a long legal battle, a group of Amish families living in Ontario, Canada, they were victorious in getting a court to overturn approximately $38,000 in COVID-era fines that were levied against them. According to an article in LifeSite News, the Democracy Fund, or TDF, stated in a press release that it had helped erase the fines for a group of Amish from Ontario. They had been convicted under the province's Quarantine Act, as it was called, for not going along with the COVID nonsense. TDF lead attorney Mark Joseph said it is an important victory for Canadian justice. He noted that TDF successfully had the Amish convictions overturned after a final May 22nd court appearance that came after 7 months of negotiations and hearings. TDF explained in its press release that its clients were first convicted in absentia during COVID-19 for fines related to not using the government-mandated ArriveCan travel app, which was put in place by former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. To use ArriveCan, one, would need to use modern technology, such as a mobile phone, which many Amish do not use. TDF took the position that the Amish did not receive proper notice of the offenses, the trial, or conviction. ArriveCan was introduced in April of 2020 by the Trudeau government and made mandatory in November of 2020. The app, it was used by the government to track the COVID vaccine status of those entering the country and various public venues within Canada. Despite the success of this case, other Amish groups from Ontario, they have not yet been successful in getting similar COVID-era fines overturned. That was reported by LifeSite News. So, let this be a lesson to all of us. It's better to resist and stand on principle than to comply with tyranny. Those who complied, those who masked up and got their shots, well, they were able to travel freely by showing their digital papers. But now, several years later, many of them are left with serious health problems, while others, sadly, have passed away. And others, they have been sterilized. The Amish, they represent the true spirit of freedom, despite doing what was, at the time, highly unpopular. Now, they can hold their heads high, knowing they've been vindicated. But even if they were not vindicated, they knew they were doing the right thing. They were doing the right things, maybe not in the eyes of the government, but certainly in the eyes of God. That does it for this edition of the Worldview Report. As always, thank you for tuning in and supporting the broadcast. Please consider going now to worldviewfoundation.com and making a contribution of any size. You'll also find our mailing address there if you prefer to support us through the mail. We are looking for more regular monthly contributors. It costs so much to keep this network going, to push it all out for free. Versus what many do, they put it all behind a paywall. Their live stream, their shows after they go off the air, everything is put behind a paywall. Not us. We try to keep ministry, information, education, exhortation front and center. So if you appreciate that, we do need your support. Worldviewfoundation.com, worldviewfoundation.com. Till next time, I'm Brandon House. May God save America. Take care.